no other greater authority than the Most High. If he's on my side, that means he ain't on your side.
Come on.
This letter is written to an assembly in Rome. Where was the first assembly? Where was this word Rome mentioned at first as an assembly? What book?
Corinthians.
Who said Acts? All right, hallelujah. So Acts, Paul has visited Rome, Corinth. Every letter that you see that Paul has established and has written, he visited these places. Some of them before, some of them later. Now, this particular letter to the church in Rome, Paul is writing this letter, but he had not yet visited yet. So Paul don't know the community. He hasn't met them face to face. But what he understands is the report of those elders who are over these assemblies, that he reported to him that we have converted non-Messianics who have now become Messianic. We also have pagans who were converted who now believe. So the assembly is made up of Israelites and Gentiles. So Paul hasn't visited yet. This particular letter that was written was pretty much one of his final letters. Now we see it in the scripture, in the canon. After Acts, we see Romans. But in actuality, historically, Romans should have been last. Because Paul, this was one of his later letters. Before he actually visited Rome. He finally made it there. But the reason why Rome is so important is because it was the capital. And there was so many potential people there for salvation. He was fighting everything he could to get to Rome. Even though it's a death sentence, but he's already counted his life as done. He's already counted his life as nothing because he knows Yeshua. So he's ready to go to a marvelous city with potential and stand in front of the people and evangelize. This was Paul's passion and drive and desire, was to make it to Rome. When Claudius, listen to this, Claudius expelled the Israelites, Paul wrote Romans in the second half of the 50s or AD 50, around maybe AD 52. Now, AD 49, Claudius expelled all Israelites. Get out of Rome. You don't get out of Rome by nightfall, we're killing you all. Just the ringleaders were expelled, people such as Aquila and Priscilla. Perhaps only a single synagogue engaged in the rioting over Christus and was completely expelled. The bottom line is that by 49, or AD 49, there were lively debates among Israelites over who Yeshua was, and these debates were violent enough to attract the attention of the authorities. So when we start looking at this New Testament thing here, it's not so much that there's a battle between do we keep Torah or not. The battle is Yeshua HaMashiach, is he actually Mashiach? That's right. Wow. This is the battle that was going on during that day and age. Wow. They weren't tripping so much about, well, should we keep the law, should we not keep the law? No, Paul dealt with that issue for people who wrote to him, such as in the Galatian assembly, which was made up of mostly pagans, mostly Gentiles. Wow. So Paul is dealing with them about the law, trying to give them understanding. Here in Rome, they know about the law. So they're not battling back and forth about whether should we keep the law. It's not so much about that. The thing is this, is HaMashiach the Savior? This is what was going on between the non-Messianics as well as the Messianics. This is the reason why during the time of Yeshua, when he walked, the issue in the battle was, is he the Messiah? And it continued. As long as the apostles kept preaching that he's the Messiah, the issue remained. It was not so much about, should we, do away with this? Should we do away with the Sabbath? Should we do it? It wasn't so much about that. It was mostly about proving that he was Messiah.
Come on, bring it out.
Romans implies that some Israelites returned by mid-50s, AD 50s, specifically Aquila and Priscilla. By the time Paul writes Romans, there are Messianic congregations mixed with Israelites and Gentile congregations, and maybe a purely Gentile Messianic congregation. Now, most of these Gentile Messianic congregations, they were also honoring Shabbat. The congregation size of a house church. So it wasn't when we start talking congregation, we think of large number. No, these were small groups. They couldn't really have their own synagogue because they were preaching Hamashiach. So they had issues with the Romans because now you're putting him over Caesar. Then you also got issues because now you're putting him over Moses. So now you got issues all the way around with the Gentile authorities and with the Jewish authorities. All right? So they had to have their churches or assemblies gather in homes. Henceforth, the reason why we see in the book of Acts, chapter number 9, we see Paul is asking for a letter from the authorities to go into houses. Wow. Because he had no jurisdiction to just go into somebody's house. Now he has to go the same way the FBI and the police got to go get a search warrant. They got to go to the commission and everybody and for them to sign off on it, whether it be a knock or a no knock, and kick your door in and come in. They just can't kick your door in and come in. They have to go get approval for justifiable cause. So Paul's justifiable cause was these believers are preaching Yeshua is the Savior, and I need the authority and the jurisdiction to go in. I need to go into every city that I want to. Will you sign off on this? So he had to get the Romans to sign off, and he also had to get the Jew, the Israelite leaders to sign off on it. So when he come to your house, he come to your house, and not only that, but they gave him the authority and the power to do as he pleased. Yeah. Some people he kicked their door and he went in, waving in the full fold, right? Some people he bound them and took them to jail. It depends on how strong you were, how much of a follower you had. And it said that it was almost like breathing to him.
Wow.
Yeah.
He couldn't wake up without searching for a Messianic believer.
Come on.
It was as though it was like he breathed in. This is why it was so important, and this is why Ananias, Barnabas, and everybody else was afraid of it.
That's right.
Yeah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Romans chapter number 1, verse 1 through 2, overview. Paul, a servant of Yeshua HaMashiach, called to be an apostle, set apart for the gospel of Yah, which he promised beforehand through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures. And I'm going through this because we're building here. Romans chapter number 1, verse number 8 through 10. I'm jumping. First, I thank my Yah. This is according from Paul in Romans. Through Yeshua HaMashiach for all of you, because your faith is proclaimed in all the world. For Yah is my witness, whom I serve with the Ruach in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I mention you always in my prayers, asking that somehow by Yah's will I may now at last succeed in coming to you. This is chapter 1. He's writing a letter because he's never been there yet. So he understands that these assemblies are made up of different people. This is why he writes the way he writes. Drop down to verse 14. I'm under obligation both to Greeks and to barbarians, both to the wise and to the foolish. So I am eager to preach the gospel to you also who are in Rome. It doesn't matter that it's only a small group of you and it's millions of pagans. It don't matter because he comes to the resolution that it's me and Yah are the majority. When we as believers step into any situation that seems to be obstacles, we have to have the mindset, but that only comes by renewing our minds. That only comes by being in him as he is in us. To know that regardless of numbers, it don't matter. That there's nobody greater, there's no other greater power, there's no other greater authority than the Most High. And if he's on my side, that means he ain't on your side.
Come on.
And that simply means that we don't need a whole lot of numbers to make change.
Come on now.
All we need is the power on our side.
Come on now. Right.
Verse number 16 through 17. He says, listen, I'm eager to see you. Why am I eager to see you? Because I am not ashamed of the gospel. That's the question we need to be asking. Maybe folks are ashamed of the gospel in our day and age because it seems as though the gospel ain't being preached and we supposed to be in the truth.
Come on now.
Come on now.
The gospel is the truth. But if we in the truth, then why aren't we preaching the gospel, which is the truth?
Yes.
So Paul is he's resolved in being who he is as an Israelite. He's resolved in knowing Torah, but he didn't have one key element. He didn't have the Ruach. Once he obtains the Ruach, now I'm even more fearless. You thought I was crazy and thought y'all was scared of me then because I was kicking in doors. Now you're really going to be afraid of me because now I'm coming to bring terror not only to the pagan governments,